Hey everyone. In celebration of Christmas, I made a review of Home Alone and uploaded it to YouTube. Unfortunately, it was blocked worldwide because Fox are one of the worst companies to deal with in terms of fair use, and I figured that it wouldn't be worth disputing since I'd surely be the losing side in that battle, despite the fact that I did nothing wrong. So, sorry guys, but I just don't think you'll be able to see that review from me, at least in the form that I wanted it to be seen. But I do hope that this second update in my new video series can compensate for it. Here are 10 films I've watched somewhat recently, and I hope you enjoy hearing my thoughts on them. Dracula. It took me a while to get to watching this old horror classic. While some people may consider it outdated, I think the film holds up very well despite being 80 years old. I love the creepy tones that the film had, and of course, I love the story of Count Dracula and Bela Lugosi's performance. Really, no one can play a vampire in the same way that Lugosi does. The eyes and the voice, it really is just eerie stuff. The film is pretty short, and I do wish it would have gone on for much longer than it did, but enough story is present in the film, so I wouldn't label this a fault in any way. This is a great classic horror film, and in my opinion, is the best of the old Universal monster films that I've seen so far. Witness. This movie kicked ass. To be fair, I did see it in school about a year and a half ago, but watching it at home on a big screen is a completely different experience for me. This was an excellent crime story and a nice exploration of another culture, that being the Amish. You get a great insight into how these people live, but the murder story side of the film keeps you on the edge the whole time, even when it doesn't quite feel like there is something going on. Harrison Ford delivers an excellent performance and totally steals the show, but the other characters, notably the Amish, are still very entertaining. The ending is just awesome too. In general, this is just a great movie by director Peter Weir, who has made some brilliant and, in my opinion, very underappreciated films. Witness is certainly a film that I want to get on DVD. Christmas Vacation. It's Christmas, and I've been eager to see plenty of Christmas films. One of those is this comedy classic. The film does have a few negatives, such as a few scenes which just feel like they only exist for being funny and don't really move the plot forward, but this is a comedy and I can excuse them for that. The film has plenty of memorable moments, such as the lighting of the house and the destruction of a Christmas tree, and I also like that the film captured the spirit of Christmas, whilst also picking fun at some of the negative externalities of it, like struggling to put up Christmas lights, and bringing together irritating relatives. It's a fun little movie that is appropriate for the Christmas season, and it's definitely one worth checking out if you haven't seen it before. All About Eve. I didn't think too much of this movie, but for what it was worth, it was a good watch, and it is a nice looking DVD in my collection. The film has a reasonably good presentation of how theatre society operates, and has an engaging story about how a young aspiring actress gets involved with her role model and her friends. The idea of ambition and betrayal is in there, and it makes the story more engaging. I like the way in which the film begins at the latest point of the story, and uses a flashback narrative to reveal how these events came to be. A lot of people think this movie is flat out amazing, but I'd only call it pretty good, to be honest. But to be fair and give it some praise, the dialogue is excellent, as are the leading performances. All About Eve is a really good movie, and certainly one worth seeing, and I can understand the praise behind it, even if I don't quite agree with it myself. Hitler, The Rise of Evil. I saw a tiny bit of this in my modern history class, and I wanted to see the entire film. It's a TV miniseries, and as far as TV films go, this is one of the very best as far as I'm concerned. The historical accuracy is absolutely incredible, and it was really nice to see a different film dealing with Nazi Germany. Instead of being a film about the war or the Holocaust, this is about Hitler's early life and rise to power in the 1920s and 30s. It details the origins of his aggressive nationalism, his joining the Nazi Party, writing of Mein Kampf, and his relationships with others, notably his niece and his mistress Eva Braun. The 3-hour length has no effect on the watchability or the pacing of the film, simply because every single scene is just so damn engaging. Robert Carlyle delivers a phenomenal performance as Adolf Hitler. Despite the fact that he doesn't look a thing like him, he really convinces you that he is the German tyrant. This really is an amazing movie, and when you get the free time, I really think you should check it out. I really do think it is a must-see movie. WALL-E. I've always liked Pixar. I think they're a great company and have made some brilliant animated films. I did enjoy this movie, but I have to say that I do think that the movie is a bit overrated. Granted that the film definitely has some great things about it, and it did a great job in making sure a film with minimal dialogue didn't become a dreadful bore, I just think that the film didn't have the best pacing and took a while in moving towards an actual plot. The animation is great, and I certainly like the imagination in the robots and the spacecraft and all that, but I also feel that the movie has relied a bit too much on making references to 2001: A Space Odyssey. It presents the idea that humans are relying too much on technology and that machines will gradually become more dominant, but I just couldn't help but feel like I should have been watching 2001 instead. The movie does have some really funny moments, and it definitely is good, but I just don't think it is the great animated film that a lot of people made it out to be. The Wave, or otherwise known as Die Welle. I read the novel that this movie was based off of a few years ago, and I loved it. My main motivation was to experience this great story in a cinematic way and draw a comparison to the book, and I've made a conclusion. This is a real good movie, but it isn't as good as the novel. The fact that it was in German was interesting to me, considering that the story deals with the ideas of a dictatorship, and it was interesting to see German attitudes towards this, considering their history. I was slightly annoyed that things were changed from the book, but some of these things worked in a way that helped this film stand out on its own a little bit more. The ending is far more extreme than in the movie, and this gave me a bit of a surprise since I was expecting it to end just like the book. I think it really just goes to show that novels and films just can't function in the same way, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. The book is superior in my eyes, but that doesn't mean that this movie doesn't have merit. Empire of the Sun. I love World War II movies, as you probably know, and this may very well be my favourite World War II movie dealing with the Pacific Theatre. It deals with how the people living in China suffered under the Japanese occupation from the point of view of a young English boy. I love how Jamie, the main character, seriously matures over the course of the movie. Starting off as a carefree boy with a fascination with the Empire of Japan and its war effort, he gradually learns about the pity of war and how it causes suffering to people on the home front and soldiers alike, and this helps the movie function as an anti-war movie. Certainly not the best of its kind, but effective nonetheless. Christian Bale plays Jamie, and he was brilliant even as a child, and I can see why he's one of the best modern-day actors around. He's had real experience. When I think of World War II movies, I pretty much always think about the European war with Germany, but this is a great example of a World War II movie where the focus isn't on the war in Europe, but the conflict with Japan. It's a great war movie and reinforces Steven Spielberg's obvious directorial genius. Dr. Zhivago. I haven't seen too many David Lean films, but of the few I have seen, I think they're great. Dr. Zhivago is an epic and is comparable to Gone with the Wind. The film is set during the Bolshevik Revolution, which is a topic that I have quite a fascination with, and the film greatly captures the hardships of the Russian people at that time, and has a great story revolving around the main characters. The film spans over the course of many years and provides an insight into the final years of the Russian Empire and the early years of the Soviet Union, and from a history buff's perspective, it is always a cool thing to see this. The film is wonderfully directed and has great pacing, which certainly helps when watching a long film. There's also some great music and a brilliant cast and script. There aren't too many specific things I have to say. It's simply just an amazing historical epic that everyone should see, especially if you're a fan of Gone with the Wind or David Lean. Super 8. Let me just get this out of the way and say that I adored this movie. It certainly isn't one of the greatest movies that has ever been made, but my great experience watching this movie is rooted on a more personal level. I'm a big fan of The Goonies, and this film resembled it in many ways, which certainly appealed a lot to me, but I also love how the film focuses on kids trying to make a movie. It's something that I used to do with my friends sometimes when I was a kid, and even though our movies really sucked, we had a lot of fun making them anyway. This is a film which made me think back to that time in my life when I was much more carefree, and it really just made me feel really happy. On top of that, the movie is just a really fun adventure that resembles past Spielberg efforts, but that is not surprising considering he is the producer of this film. While I'm sure most will view this as a great movie, I don't think that many others will develop this sort of attachment to it like I did. It may have been a simple action film, but the story and the way it is presented is something that I could really relate to, and that is why I love this movie so much. And that's the end of this video, guys. I hope you had a good time watching it, and goodbye.